Hi, I'm Charlotte McConnell, and I live in Sterling, which is in Loudoun County, and I am a community organizer with Equality Loudoun.
Hi, I'm Takier George. I live in Arlington, Virginia. I attend Wakefield High School, and I'm an 11th grader, and I'm a part of an anti-bullying group called the Upstanders.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm a recent graduate from Old Dominion University with a Human Services degree. I currently mentor with the I'm Just Me movement, and I facilitate CFCA, which is Connecting Families Coping with Addiction.
Hi, my name is Autumn Seitz. I attend Jameswood High School, and I am associated with the I'm Just Me movement.
Hi, I'm Nathan Bynum, and I serve on the Rappahannock County School Board. And please join us in conversation. I'm a parent also at Rappahannock County Schools. We're a really small school district. We have about 800 people enrolled pre-K to 12, and sometimes there's a time where you need to step up and join in in a small community, and my role as a school board member came out of my being a parent at school. I think that the big concern that I have is that in order for kids to learn and to feel like they can meet their potential, they need to feel safe in school. Mm-hmm. And so that's huge. And I think that seeing kids, especially growing out in a place with sort of limited classes or opportunities, creating a small and caring community is a real possibility at our schools. We have small class sizes, we have teachers who have been at the school for a long time, and so that's an area that, although we can't offer every whistle and bell that education can offer, what we can offer is good quality and base it on our small size. So that's been a good thing for me to see as a parent that they started the Olveus anti-bullying program, for example, and creating the kind of community that where we can all learn is so important, because if we can't feel comfortable and safe in school, we can't, reach our potential. So there's a lot of great opportunities at schools to teach kids that maybe aren't learning as many of the social skills as they might have learned at home, and that's really neat to see classroom communities forming and mentorship programs forming, and there's a lot of recent efforts at those kinds of things. And also fits with wellness, fits with people feeling good in their bodies and feeling good, feeling well nourished, and feeling safe and comfortable and not lashing out at others. And that's something we're really working on, integrating all those pieces at school. So. You said you had some experience with Olveus, didn't you?
I attended Berkeley County Schools for 2 years, and we did the Olveus program, and it really helped because we did it in class, and we talked about it with the teachers. And then we also went to the gym, and then the principals would come in and talk to us about it, and it really helped prevent bullying. And when I moved to Frederick County Schools, they didn't have it, and you could see a drastic change in them having it, and then Berkeley County having it, and then Frederick County not having it, because there was a lot more bullying in Frederick County than there was Berkeley County.
Really? Wow.
That's a big change.
I became interested in the bullying because my wife and I are, of course, LGBTQ, and we're raising 3 kids. We have a 21-year-old, a 17, and an 8. Okay. So we face discrimination ourselves. So we know what it feels like to be bullied. We don't want our kids to go through it. We don't hide it from the kids. We're very upfront and honest, so that if our kids are ever faced with bullying, they know to stand up for themselves. We created a rule within our home where if any of our children are in school and they see another child being bullied, that it's called the 3 rule. They tell 3 adults, doesn't matter who it is, the 3 closest adults, it could be a teacher, principal, nurse, janitor, anyone, that this is going on. If those 3 people, if none of those react, our children will take it into their own hands to protect the one that's being bullied. And then we will deal with the school. Because in the county that we live in, and it's in other places as well, there are a lot of adults that won't interfere or protect the one that's being bullied because they're afraid of their own licensure. They're afraid of losing their job, making the wrong move, lawsuits, things like that. So often when these kids are being bullied, they're not being protected, and no one's really interfering. And by the time a principal could possibly get to the situation, it could have escalated to a point where it could have been stopped. So we raise our kids to understand, help others, put yourself in their shoes. If you see something that's not right, make sure you say something. If you can help that person, step in and help that person. If there's a consequence to that, as long as you've told those 3 people, we will stand behind you. But they also understand that if they did not tell those 3 people and they stepped in, we may not stand behind them. They know the rules. So, and also myself growing up with several disabilities, I know what it's like to be picked on just because of I learned a different way from someone else, or I can't hear like everybody else can. So I don't want the kids to ever go through that. So I got involved with the I'm Just Me movement, who mentors at-risk youth. The point is to create diversity and accept diversity, accept that everyone is different. And one of our examples is actually her shirt. This is one of the things that we do at our events. We talk about embrace, self-pride, what makes you you, and they get to fill in this blank. So when she got her shirt, she filled in that she's a leader. Cool. We also do handprints where the kids take an oath for bullying to help end bullying, and take the oath that they will be there for other people and that they will do their best not to bully someone else. And it can be elementary to high school to college kids. So bullying is really close to my heart, and so that's how I got involved with this.
So like I said before, I'm an upstander, and an upstander is basically someone who sees someone getting bullied and they don't just stand there, which is what a bystander would do. And of course, they're not the bully. So of course, like you said, Amanda, you first tell an adult or if it's a safe situation, you can intervene and say, hey, that's not okay what you're doing. So the overall goal of an upstander is basically to create a positive and welcoming school climate and make sure that everyone feels included. And some ways that I feel like we do that at my school is, we start really early. We go into elementary schools, and we kind of like, us as students, we kind of educate them on like what bullying is and how to be an upstander, because we don't consider it just a group. We consider it a lifestyle, because you're trying to include everyone, and you don't want anyone ever to feel different or point out someone because of their differences. And one thing about Arlington is it's such a diverse place. So we really have to make sure that everyone understands that it's okay to be different, and that there's always going to be someone to like lend a helping hand and understand what you're going through.
Yeah, at Rappahannock County Schools, we have just a 4-year-old now peer mentorship program. Our school the high school runs 8th through 12th grade. And so what happens is people who are nominated to be mentors, it's kind of like the upstanders mentor, each mentor is matched with an individual 8th grader, and then they do activities, just sort of fun activities like carving pumpkins or doing some help for the community, or just a social activity. And it does help the 8th graders who really, it used to feel like there was something akin to hazing that would happen when the 8th graders arrived at school, and it was hard to figure out, and the juniors and seniors would kind of laugh at them instead of helping them, and that's had a huge impact. And then the high school students, like you were saying, they go down to the elementary school, and imagine for a 3rd or 4th grader having a big basketball star come down and
Yeah.
help you feels it's the most if they feel that sense of caring from the community. And then the high school students who are about to embark onto their full adult lives, they feel a little bigger and taller. The basketball isn't the only thing they can be good at. They can be good at being caring towards others, and that's really inspiring to see them kind of seeing that our strength is in our connections.
And it's really truly better to start them younger, rather than later, because when you start it later, they've already developed those type of social skills that they feel are okay, that are not okay. So starting them younger is better to, I'm trying to think of another word for train, because you're kind of training them to grow up as to how to act, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Even James Wood has a small program where they take some of the high schoolers down to the elementary school, which is down the hill, and they read to them. I mean, even the interaction from the high school to the little kids, it's kind of like the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, where they get to be with an older person and they get to pick, what book and things like that, and it gets them working together. And it also helps the high schoolers because they understand more of where that kid has been or could be. So we have that kind of program too.
Well, I think reading is so important, and I have an almost 8-year-old and almost 4-year-old, and we have been reading books to teach diversity and compassion and just how people are different. And I just picked up a book from our library to teach children about poverty and the reality of homeless people living on the streets. And I think that it is crucial for children to read more with parents, with family, and that there's not always someone at home to read to the kids. So I feel really lucky that I've been able to do that with my own. But I've been speaking to the Loudoun County School Board the second Tuesday of every month since November of 2016 about adding gender identity and sexual orientation to their employee non-discrimination policy, which they voted against doing in January 2017. So at these meetings, they have public comments, and we've had a number of kids who might be in middle school speak to the school board and say, I'm an 8th grader and I'm bisexual and I've been bullied. And this is what I'm hearing. And teachers aren't intervening. They're not doing anything. Sometimes it's teachers using hateful language. And it might be directed at students or not, but either way, it is completely inappropriate. So we've been really focused on creating this policy to protect teachers so that they can be more visible allies to the students. And there are a number of middle school students who have wanted to start a gay-straight alliance at the middle school. But one of the students, was telling their guidance counselor about that, and the reply was, "That's against my religious beliefs, so that can't happen."
There's another issue with creating the alliances is the rule for that in schools is there has to be a faculty member involved in it. And a lot of the times the faculty members are afraid of how they're going to be treated from other faculty, how they're going to be treated from the school board, because are they looked at as taking the side of the LGBT or not taking the side? So, and that, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that also falls under the part with the teachers not intervening. And there are a couple schools where teachers have stepped up and became part of the alliance. We tried for years. I also represented PFLAG, Parents and Families of Lesbians and Gays. It was a support group that is currently not running anymore right now. But we tried to get that same thing at James Wood High School, but none of the faculty wanted to step up. So that would have been a very fundamental thing. And honestly, I think all schools should have something like that. And I think it's great that you're working on something to protect the teachers, because until they feel protected, they're not going to step in and intervene, whether it's bullying. It doesn't matter what type of bullying it is. And just because they're behind that desk doesn't allow them to speak to the children without respect and dignity. Because every person, it doesn't matter if you're my boss, if you're the CEO, I'm gonna treat you like you should be treated. And you should treat me like I'm at that same level. You should not treat me like I'm below you. So the teachers shouldn't be allowed to do that. And there's often times where even our kids come home and say, well, the teacher said this to me or the teacher said that to me. And
Yeah.
there's comes a point where us as parents can't intervene either, because then it creates conflict, and it's conflict that teachers don't want to be mixed in, the school board doesn't want to be mixed in, and so I'm glad you mentioned that. That's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, being a new school board member, I realized, going to the state meetings, that a big focus of school boards is to not get sued.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there are cases that are being drawn to the attention of state of Virginia school board members that you can be seen as negligent if you don't take action when a problem is identified. So that's something that we're really taking seriously, taking action. Like today, there's a mental health first aid training that's going on during the
that's
teacher
nice.
workday. It's really wonderful because it's Community Services Board who provides this. And actually the person who's presenting this is an alumni of Rappahannock Schools, which is really cool.
That's nice.
And
It's home.
and so she probably has had some of the teachers, all of our new teachers. So now we have a policy of all new staff being trained and all staff being trained in mental health first aid, realizing that recently there was a letter to the paper that a student had written talking about disparaging comments that had been made by a teacher, and there was a knee-jerk reaction of, well, we have a great school, why is anybody criticizing it? But it did actually, when people do speak up, it does make you feel that, wow, we really need to keep on doing better, and we need to keep on reminding that in the basic motivation for teachers is to teach students, and it does get in the way if a student is LGBT and they don't feel like they're a valued part of the community, that isn't, we're not going to be able to serve that student.
Yeah.
And just the basic sensitivity, it's an all-day training that they're doing today with new staff, and that idea of those little comments, because there is an inherent, you ladies are very poised and seem adult-like, but there is an inherent power differential when a teacher might say something they think they're joking, or or it's just the kind of thing they heard said when they were growing up, or the teachers might have said to them when they were growing up. We do need to change towards, we are a society that includes everyone, and we need to see. Also, you spoke about students with special needs, and that's something that I spoke with a student the other day who said that now that he's become friends with a child who has autism, he notices bullying happening that he didn't notice before, because he's not a kid who
Faces it.
who faces it directly,
Yeah.
but he sees that, and it makes him sad, and it affects how he feels about his school. So
Well, it takes a lot for someone to speak up.
it does, yeah.
So a lot of times, as soon as that first person speaks up, then you'll find a lot more people following behind, because it's that initial speaking up of the first person. And then that's when others realize, oh, I'm not alone.
Right.
So I want to tell my side too. Well, the same thing's happening to me. So, and one thing that, I'm Just Me's working on is a program called Project Positive. And they're working with the Warren Coalition and the Warren County Schools. And the kids actually came up with the name Project Positive. It came from a program called MORE, which is called My Opportunity for Reinforcement and Enrichment. And it's where Tina and Rodney go into the schools, they're the CEOs of the I'm Just Me movement. They go into the schools and they speak with youngsters in middle school about bullying. And the kids, once they started talking to them, they realized, well, I have a voice, I know what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. So when they teamed up, there's now 36 students in Warren Middle School, in Warren County Middle School, that are part of this group. And they encourage other kids. If they see a kid that's down, they say something to get them smiling. They find ways to brighten other kids' days that are having a hard day. Even just writing little notes, note cards, things like that. And that's been a big difference. Because not only do they face diversity issues and when you're younger, but that's also the age when you're the most vulnerable. And then, so I'm Just Me also talks about suicide prevention, because more and more suicide is happening. According to a website, pacer.org, the LGBT community is 40% more likely to be bullied. 40% more than everyone else who's already being bullied. So not just, and I'm not trying to focus on that, but also the other kids that are being bullied, you know, they can be bullied because their skin color's different, their orientation's different, they have a disability. It can range from many things, and because these kids are not getting help or having someone stand up for them, they feel that the only way out is to commit suicide. And as adults and as young people, our job is to protect others. It doesn't matter who they are. And by being able to speak up in the group that you guys have, in the group that you guys have, and everything that all of us are involved in, and everyone else, you know, we can lower that number, but it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of patience. And getting out in the school systems, getting out to our youngsters, and starting younger and younger with the elementary kids like you guys do, can help lower that number and help the kids feel, oh, I have a place here. I am important. I am a person. And so that's what our job as I'm Just Me is. We want them to embrace what makes them different. Just because you have a disability doesn't mean that you can't succeed. And I'm living proof of that. I have several disabilities and I just graduated with my bachelor's. Took me 8 years, but I did it. So, and I want others to know that. Other kids that might be different with disabilities, that you can do it. You are a person. It doesn't matter what your disability is, or your orientation, or your race. There's always someone out there who is willing to help. It's just finding them, or those people finding the ones that need help and willing to stand up and make that difference. And I'm so glad to see that it's not just in Warren County, it's not just in Frederick County, it's not just in Rappahannock, it's in Arlington, and Arlington is huge. So to be able to come up with a program like that is great. And I just feel that I'm great that this conversation is happening today, because bullying needs to be put in everybody's face, and everybody to understand that, hey, it's going on. Even though nobody's mentioning it or you don't hear about it, it's happening.
And one thing that before my students enrolled in Rappahannock schools, I had sort of a false conception of what it might be like joining the public schools. But I found the small class size and the teachers that my kids had, they created an environment where my shy little kid had the chance, you know, he was doing magic tricks for the class, you know, when each teacher draws out, not just saying, oh, you're different and we're gonna concentrate on that difference, we're gonna say, this is special about you, this is,
embrace it.
And there are so many ways, you know, in middle school we have a teacher who every day does this circle the wagons thing and introduces, and has the kids introduce themselves and say, just answer some question, maybe it's a very lighthearted question, but something that shows the students that they're interested on a regular basis in something that's outside of maybe the subject matter they're teaching. I think that those connections and encouraging that communication, I feel like my kids' experience at school has been one that has, where they've been able to be themselves, and that's been, it could be more, and we could offer more programs, but I do think that you can tell when a teacher values getting to know his or her students, and it's important, just that sense of true caring, and that's where, it can be hard, for me to imagine, gosh, going to a giant school like Arlington or even, how do you feel? I'm wondering how kids get that, how students get that feeling of, like how can that be? Because we're in like a class of 17 kids and the student, Arlington is big, but I mean, you must have. How do you get that sense of individual teachers caring and
What's your class
students?
size?
There's so many clubs.
Clubs, yeah. Okay.
A good 20 in each class, 20 something.
Yeah.
I feel like I said, Arlington is so diverse that it's hard not to be an individual in Arlington. Like you can definitely find your place, especially at Wakefield. There's so many clubs. There's so many things to do in Arlington that show individuality, and I'm also really glad that students get a chance to be the ones to bring awareness to bullying, because a lot of the times adults aren't the ones witnessing firsthand the bullying. It's the students, and bullying makes people feel so small. And for someone that's getting bullied to be like, oh, another student sees me, like actually sees this happening and is going to do something about it. That's really great to know that you're cared about.
Yeah, and that's what the survey that we did showed. The places where bullying happens the most is on the school bus and on the playground when there isn't as much. And I think that unstructured time is so important to kids to have. I don't think the answer is, okay, well, let's just cut out any unstructured time work, because kids need to have unstructured ways of interacting, but understanding, giving them real life tools to how to be helpful and to have it seem like an important way.
Well, that's also why we need training for the entire staff, not just teachers. So cafeteria workers, school bus drivers, on bullying prevention, but also just on like LGBT outreach, because it is a little different. Because as you said, 40% of LGBT kids are bullied, but not many of them report that they've been bullied, and sometimes when they do report that they've been bullied, no action is taken.
Right.
So schools have a responsibility where if bullying has occurred, that they need to follow up instead of just like that being the end of it, because that also sends a message of why bother to report bullying, because nothing is going to happen.
One is two, when they're in trainings and stuff, they've got to be serious about it. But I used to be a school bus driver, and every year we have a big like conference that we have to do, and a lot of times after you hear that people didn't care about what they were watching, and if the faculty doesn't care, then the training's not going to do any good. The faculty has to be serious, and they have to understand that you're here to protect these kids, and just because that bell rings doesn't mean the bullying stops. Autumn recently has been experiencing some bullying on the bus, and she has told the bus driver didn't do much. It got to the point where we went straight to school board. I mean, we called transportation, and we know the people at transportation because we used to drive for them. It continued. So we took the next step and we called the school board.
Okay.
The kids were never even kicked off the bus. So she's still dealing with it today. And because nothing's been done. And it's boys against a girl. And it's not appropriate. And I've tried, I'm twiddling my thumbs and biting my tongue to not go to the parents' home because they get off at the same bus stop.
With the principal or the superintendent?
We've been with the principal.
Yeah.
Yep. We went through all the means, and so far nothing has been done.
And nothing has happened.
Yeah, up to the school board.
Wow.
It
And
also
nothing
doesn't.
has been done with the boys.
It also doesn't help that when the principal asks, the boy sits there and says, "Oh, I didn't do that. I have no clue what she's talking about." But they also didn't pull the cameras on the bus because it's a newer bus, so there's cameras. And they didn't pull the cameras and watch them, and you can hear him say it. Because he sits at the very front, and I sit at the very back. And I shouldn't be able to hear him say it, and then the camera not get it, because he sits right by the camera. So he should have got kicked off the bus. in my opinion.
Now, some of the buses do have 2 cameras, where there's 1 camera up front and 1 camera's
Yep.
in the middle. So is it the
There's-
middle camera that you're talking about, or the front
He sits at the very front, so he sits at the front camera.
camera? And they're pretty, pretty inappropriate comments to be coming from a teenage boy.
Well,
To a
one
teenage
has to
girl.
learn where is he learning this language? You
Yeah,
know,
and
where is
that's-
this coming from?
Right, it's got to be coming from somewhere. It's either the environment that he's raised in, the language that he's raised around, and he thinks that it's okay, and it's not. And that's another thing where, adults do it too. And, focusing on the kids, we can focus on the kids as much as we want, but if they go home and it's right there in front of them, they're going to turn around and do it the next day. But we got to change the adults too. We got to help change the environment and everything else, the learned behaviors. And it's hard to do that when they're constantly around the bad behaviors. But like this situation, it's still never been dealt with because somebody's not taking the first move to stand up. Where we've stood up, we've taken it as far as we can take it. Well, not as far, there's other steps we can take, but we wanted to give them the chance to step up to the plate and do what you should be doing as a school board. So it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard because you need to be heard, and that's something that it's very rare in our county that something gets up to the school board level. It hasn't happened since I've been on the school board. It's a small group, but generally, when we hear things from parents, we go back down to the principal level and try to have that dealt with and follow up. If you have an individual school board member who could follow up with the administration, make sure that the superintendent knows that it's an important thing, because what it boils down to is success of your school.
Right.
Like it's hard to learn and to feel.
Well, and we like using.
To feel because schools do value every student, should value
do.
every student.
Yeah, they should.
And so finding a way to both sort of one piece that we've been working with also is the concept of restorative justice, to not just if a student is being a bully, for example, is acting out, that often is a cry for help in some way. It might be an example that they are working through that they see in other parts of their environment at home or elsewhere. And so trying to give, the student who's doing bullying is someone who needs to learn how to be a functioning adult in the kind of society we want, which is one where we are all in it together, and where everybody is productive. And so it's hard for me to see that someone who's bullying in that way is being served very well by not having the opportunity to remediate their behavior. And that's the difficult piece of it. And that's something that we also have been working with in terms of the concept of restorative justice, working away from just sort of sit in a box for a suspension and towards some mindfulness training and some other different basic physical things you can do, and where you can hopefully go back to the mainstream and be. But talking from a point of compassion, when you report something like this, like I'm sure you're really angry at that young man or that group, but thinking, gosh, they're not being served by, they're not being served, you're not being served. We're looking for a place of compassion for everybody and learning that. Some people don't get the opportunity to learn that. We have pretty high rates of poverty at our school. We have very little state funding coming in so it is something to where we realize more and more of these problems that kids bring in relate to absent parents, relate
kids
to
can change too.
And kids are growing and changing all the time, and so having having the support systems is really important. And it's hard, but trying to see from a compassionate place. Well, like I want to help you. You know, we all want to be helping. Everybody wants to feel comfortable. We want to be able to, it should be a learning opportunity, just like when someone writes a letter to the paper and says, somebody said something bad to me. That's a learning opportunity. That's all you can do is learn.
Learn.
We're not going to get perfect. We're never going to be perfect, but we can learn, you know.
Well, and that's where I'm Just Me takes it another step forward, another step higher is we also go to our local juvenile detention center. And we mentor the at-risk youth that's in the detention center. And we help them to understand that, yes, something terrible got you here. And it might be the absence of the parents. And what we do is we step in and we mentor these kids and we help them get back on track so that when they do get out, they do have something to go for. They do have a future. But we also meet with parents as well as to help them, you know, how can you change the environment so the environment is ready when your child gets out? And we've had great success with it. And I was glad when I was asked to be a part of that because you got to start somewhere. And if the kids don't have the support, and they're just going to go right back out and end up in the same thing that they were before. And eventually they're going to move on to the bigger jail. And at that point, we may have lost them. They may not change, but we have to give them the chance, and we have to give them the help that we can give them.
And at the regional jail where Rappahannock is part of, maybe that's you're in Winchester. So the regional at the regional jail, there are programs for. One of my friends is teaching yoga classes there every week, you know, to inmates. And I think that restorative piece is a big one.
Well, there's a relationship between, you know, parents having to work multiple jobs and really not even make ends meet. So we need to make sure that people are getting paid a living wage so that they can spend more time, you know, at home interacting with their children. And we also need better after-school programs, like at elementary school, middle school, so
affordable ones.
Yes,
because that's another issue.
Well, where I am in Sterling, the middle school lets out, and then there's a library across the street, and a lot of the kids like go and hang out at the library. But then it seems like the librarians end up just cleaning up after the kids because they've got like sodas there. They're kind of hanging out, but right on, like across the street from there is a retirement home. And I'm like, why can't we connect maybe some of these lonely senior citizens with these middle school kids so we can start like a mentoring program? Because I do think having a mentor will give them better outcomes. And the perspective that they're not getting from older generations at home so that they can learn to be, you know, more respectful.
And they spend so much time online, and that's a huge, you know, and I don't know if
which now that's being considered a mental health issue.
And
because
that's
they're spending
something
so
that
much, and they're disconnecting from the world itself.
And just parents are not aware of the cyberbullying that goes on, of the apps that their kids are using. That's something
they're afraid to tell their parents.
A big part of safety is feeling.
And parents have to be able to say, show me your last chat, you know, show me what you have been doing online, where you've been going online. And I mean, I know people who disconnect their Wi-Fi at night so their kids can't get online in the middle of the night.
Even though that she's a senior, every night, 9 o'clock, phone and tablet is plugged up in our room under the bed. So we're going to hear her if she comes in the room. And you'd be amazed in what that's done for her and her grades. But a lot of times, even adults, when you've got that screen in front of you, you feel you can say whatever you want to say, and it's not going to come back. The same thing with Snapchat. A lot of these teens feel that, oh, I can send this picture, and then after they look at it twice, it's gone. No, the court can subpoena those, and those pictures are still out there. Those comments are still out there.
Yeah, that's a big piece of education that we're working on. We're having a school safety summit coming up to where that's a big topic is the whole cyber issue, and that's something that we're in Rappahannock County. We don't even have cell service everywhere, but people find it. So I feel like a lot of the adults are well behind. We're not as tech savvy, and I think that that it's so easy for teens to learn about and get way ahead of
Right.
their parents and families.
Yeah, I feel like no matter how many times they tell us or how many slideshows they show us, we never get it until something actually happens. Like,
So are you being educated on the dangers of cyber?
well, I feel like I know
bullying?
this information, but I do know people at my school that don't take it as serious as I do, and I also know stories about pictures that have been leaked of people, and I don't know if they know this, but it's out there, and I don't think anybody ever gets the severity or how this can affect you later on. Like, it happened to this one girl, and she literally had to move schools
Right.
to a whole different
follow
county.
you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the middle schoolers going to the elderly home, I did a CNA program last year, and it really helped a lot of the residents at the nursing home. And it made them brightened up their day, and when we left from our clinicals, they all got sad. You could see it on their face that they were sad, that it really helped them seeing someone younger and spending time with someone younger and them helping them.
Yeah, I was a latchkey kid, in the 80s and the 90s, and we moved out to the suburbs outside of Philadelphia, and I was in 4th grade, and the school connected me with 2 senior citizens who were both named Charlotte.
Oh.
And every day when I came home from school, I was to call my Charlotte, so they knew I got home safe. And I just remember, I never knew anyone else named Charlotte, but knowing that there was someone else checking in on me. And I remember one of them, she liked to crochet little bookworm bookmarks with googly eyes. And I felt like I got a lot from that relationship. And I wonder, why aren't we doing that now? Because,
Right.
I mean, everyone has a phone, but no one uses them to talk to anyone anymore.